upskilling the team and making sure they're more efficient. An enterprise SEO consultant very rarely implements stuff. It's more about communicating the value with the right individuals. You really need to be visible on the right platforms.
What's the coolest tactic you've ever seen at the enterprise level?
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we are joined by Konrad Szymaniak, a leading enterprise SEO consultant from the UK, known for his data-driven approach at enhancing organic search performance. Welcome to the show, Konrad.
Thank you for the introduction, Chris, and thank you for having me, Nick, as well, and happy to be here.
Yeah, Konrad, it's great to have you on. I think to get started, let's talk about how you got into enterprise SEO.
Sure. I started my way while being employed, went and worked for multiple global organizations, and while I was employed, I kind of worked for multiple agencies, and I kind of find my way into my entrepreneurial spirits and my entrepreneurial roots. So I'm originally from Poland, and every single member of my family has their own business. So while I was employed, I kind of was thinking, okay, I know the knowledge, I know how enterprises work, I know how digital teams work, and I started kind of speaking to people and hearing what they were missing out on, and here I am 6 years on, fully independent, and yeah.
Nice. Sounds great. I mean, you've worked for some pretty big brands. I think a shop that I visit probably on a bi-monthly basis, at least, Sports Direct, which is pretty cool. Also Game and Sofa.com. So work for some big companies. Let's dig into it a little bit on what a consultancy actually does then for companies like this. Do they typically have big SEO teams? What's the reason that they would bring someone like you in?
Sure. So typically a enterprise SEO consultant is someone who leads and communicates the processes an SEO department should follow or a digital marketing department should follow. So for instance, if I'm dealing with a search marketing team, I would identify kind of missing puzzles of the teams. So essentially if there's a team who kind of does things slower than expected, so they export data from SEMrush and then they manually kind of try to model it, and then based on that model what their objectives are. So what I've done in the past is essentially make a team that acts quicker and smarter based on their objectives. So whether that's keyword to topic modeling using various machine learning approaches, or if it's scraping some data using custom scripts. So essentially for SEO departments, my role typically involves upskilling the team and making sure they're more efficient. On the vice versa, on the upper hand, I go in and do SEO consulting for digital teams. So essentially they would be lacking a organic search professional, and I would kind of communicate the value that I bring and also provide different bits of information that needs to be implemented on the website, whether it's off-page SEO or on-page SEO or technical aspects. So for instance, if we're finding some technical aspects like canonical tags put in wrong in place, or if it's some kind of no follow links that should be follow, or some log file issues with the bot, then I would directly communicate with the developers. So essentially, as a consultant, I go into a team and identify who I should be speaking to and when and how. And then, so for instance, if I'm dealing with a digital marketing team, they don't have much SEO knowledge. In the first few months, I would be kind of spending time on actually upskilling them. So when I'm creating briefs, so for instance, if I've identified different kind of categories with an e-commerce site, if it's a new category, new URL, I would create a content brief based on the products involved. So essentially how it all should look. If it's an existing URL, then we have on-page optimization, etc. And there's different documents. So my role within this client scenario typically involves understanding of the different elements that are taking place. So an enterprise SEO consultant very rarely implement stuff. It's more about communicating the value with the right individuals in-house who do implement those stuff. And essentially also, I'm speaking about the value SEO brings, from my understanding, wherever I go, start my engagement is usually on a 12-month basis. I identify what's the kind of traffic upstream and what that traffic would mean for the bottom line. So it's essentially, a consultant is mostly a friend, but also a strategic partner. So you're talking with the right people at the right time. So if I'm in a board meeting, I'll speak to the head of marketing using their language, right? If I'm talking with a developer, I'm using my technical terms that I know from SEO and from my background. And with vice versa with content teams, speaking the content language. So yeah, it's essentially speaking with different players, different stakeholders within the team, and being very detailed of what I want them to achieve, and yeah, like also like creating some like kind of decision trees. So what decisions should be made and when. So if an SEO team needs, I don't know, for example, a new category to put in place, I would create a plan on how to implement this, but also communicate this to the leaders, to the company leaders. So yeah, it just takes time to really understand the team at first. Like enterprise SEO for me is a very kind of niche, I guess, industry, because you have lots of consultants who claim they do enterprise SEO, but I typically deal with like digital marketing teams, more than 5 or 6 individuals. And that really takes like kind of, I don't need to implement a variety of stuff unless it's very technical. So yeah, that's my summary in a few minutes, what I do. And I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think that was perfect. So I'm curious, what's the worst scenario you've walked in on? You don't have to name a company, throw anyone under the bus, but is there anything like you've gone in to start a new project and you're just completely shocked with how bad their SEO situation is?
Sure. So I've worked for a team that had, for example, a website that had over 80,000 URLs, and half of those URLs that were receiving kind of impressions in the past were just no indexed. So my first role was really to identify why those pages were no indexed, and why no one identified kind of the traffic drop in the organization. So for instance, it would be just simple as diving into the Search Console, diving into a big query and seeing the queries that play the part, the queries that we don't see in Search Console interface. So just really diving into the data, and again, speaking to the right people, I guess, in that aspect. So we've also had like just different teams doing different things like on their own. So like a paid search team, like bidding on our branded keywords, etc. So just really, I guess, showing what we're trying to achieve. And there was like misaligned kind of communication, and each team was doing everything they think was right, and yeah.
Were you able to recover the traffic to those non-indexed pages then? Did it make a significant difference?
So I mean, I've recovered some traffic, but we essentially, well, the organization I was working for, that website, I think halfway through the engagement, about 7th month in, we completely had to do a migration to another domain, because we received a few penalties in the past. So I then had to do a whole different migration to another domain, to another CMS. So it was a completely new journey. And so it was not only about the traffic recovery, which was already at loss, it was also about getting the development to like do what I want them to do at scale. Which like from my background is the most difficult thing to do, because the dev team, they just want the site to perform, or like just to do its basic stuff. They don't really give like much thought into like the user. And like, for example, I was showing them how people drop off the site and showing some basic heat maps to them. They're just not interested. They just want, okay, the site can work, people can purchase products, they can sign up for newsletters. That's it.
It's amazing to me that you would have such a big business that would have no one on staff who was interested in heat maps, the customer journey, and it would even notice that half of the pages were no longer indexed. That feels pretty crazy to me. Okay, so you mentioned earlier a lot of people claim to be enterprise SEO consultants, but really don't have that experience with the bigger companies. So I'm curious. I feel like this is a larger problem in the SEO space, that you have a lot of SEO gurus, a lot of SEO experts on LinkedIn and on X. I'm curious, what's some of the worst advice you've seen out there, or what is some common advice you see that you just found isn't worth testing, isn't worth doing, it doesn't really work?
I mean, some advice from individuals, you can just look how like they present themselves. So for instance, from my understanding, it's better to, like, for instance, some enterprises, some larger organizations, they would just get an agency to do things for them, and in some shape or form that is right. However, when I was employed at multiple agencies that were dealing with those enterprises, it wasn't those skilled, like experienced consultants, specialists, technical aspects that were dealing with the stuff. It was juniors. So essentially, I saw some consultants, independent consultants, giving out advice that isn't like relevant to the market I operate in. So to the enterprise level market. So if it's multiple domains, multiple languages, multiple time zones, and really essentially knowing how to operate in this environment. So like if I give you an example, a bad advice a consultant was giving, it was to like communicate in a way that only the stakeholders would understand. And I was just thinking like, look, like what if you're speaking to the developers in that week, and then you're showing them what you need them to do, like you will not speak the value like of SEO, you just get them to understand what you need them to do. So I just think like some bad advice out there would be to do with how people present themselves and not really knowing who they're speaking to. So for instance, my audience, like my target audience is a very specific audience. So I wouldn't be targeting like business owners. I wouldn't be targeting, I don't know, a team of 2 who just claim to have, I don't know, like a small business and they have zero traffic on the site, because that's not what I do. If you need someone to generate traffic for you in terms of like from, I don't know, 10 URL website to 100 URL website, I'm not your guy. I'm a consultant. I don't have the kind of scalability to implement stuff. So where my power comes in is when there's a team who can actually do the things I want them to do. Educate them. That's the value. And you mentioned bad advice. Like there's so many different like advice on some people just be too techy for their target audience. So for instance, if there's a consultant who is dealing with business owners, right, he will be saying stuff about canonicals and some SQL queries that you should do in BigQuery. And like I'm thinking, okay, you're a consultant and your target audience is business owners or like some directors within the sale and marketing domain. You shouldn't really talk about stuff that they would not understand. So that's some bad advice I've been seeing online, and yeah.
What specific SEO advice do you see from like gurus and experts that fundamentally doesn't work anymore? Like specific on page or off page? Yeah, or you just disagree with, yeah.
Relying on Google as your main traffic source. So
okay.
We are search professionals, and I've spoke about this quite frequently, like in the past year, about like conversational SEO and how really like your site and your site structure should really speak to all stages. So if you're visible at the informational gain stage, even if you're an e-com brand, like some enterprises, they just want bottom of the funnel, the conversion intent kind of page is visible. But if you're not visible at the right informational gain, so if you're targeting Gen Zs, you really need to be visible on the right platforms. So being a search consultant, like it's not just to do with Google. And like if I'm diving into Google Analytics, I'm showing different channels that I provide value in. So really just trying to like kind of integrate all of this search landscape together. Yeah.
That's interesting. So how are you handling that sort of cross-platform optimization approach? Are you still prioritizing Google and then making other optimizations for multiple platforms as well? How does that work?
So we as SEO like the word it depends, right? So it all depends on the site. It all depends on the audience, on the consumers, how they interact with the site. So if I'm seeing different kind of patterns and kind of data that tells me, okay, this is the pages that receive most traffic. This traffic is from this source. Then I'm seeing, okay, I should do more effort for these pages tailing to this source. So for me, it would be essentially diving to the data and showing different players what they kind of should do in a particular way. So if I'm, for example, communicating some of the category pages or even simple like product pages, so just showing them how the copy should be written to content writers, like it should be, so we see a pattern now for some of the clients we deal with, that Google Shopping has received a drop in clicks because it's an environment like TikTok Shopping. So essentially like Google Shopping taking a kind of perspective from TikTok Shopping, and we've seen some TikTok traffic kind of upswing in the last few months. So we're saying to be really kind of more, I guess, more visual, but also communicating with the social teams. So as a consultant, I communicate with the social team and seeing, okay, what's your main kind of tactics to get more engagements on videos, and then we will try to implement that in some way or form for those pages that receive traffic from different sources.
Yeah, makes total sense. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm curious, you're talking about some different tactics. What's the coolest tactic you've ever seen at the enterprise level? It doesn't have to be something you were involved in personally.
The coolest tactic at enterprise level, I believe, is knowing who you're speaking to, because there's so many different buy-in layers. The most simple way is just to understand and be a friend to the person you're speaking to. So like there's no point like just speaking some way or shape or form that no one would understand, or like for me as the simple tactic is really being a person who everyone can go to.
The tactic of the actual SEO implementation for the business.
So I would say finding new categories in different products, just simply going to your competitors and seeing what their categories are. So for instance, the most simple tactic would be to go to your direct competitor, go to the footer and see which URLs they have, which keywords they target. Then we would create kind of, for example, you can use simple Google Keyword Planner. Which of those terms, which of those pages receive traffic in which month? So you just create heat maps. That is the simple kind of tactic you could have for your content team. So if you go to your direct competitor, they will usually have, most of those competitors would have links in the footer that they want to target, because it's a global tag. There's so many inlinks there. There's global inlinks. So just scraping that data and seeing the main query for that particular pages and showing the kind of the business owners when the search volume changes for which month. So that is the most simple, best approach for your content team to see when a particular cluster of topics should be written.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So how does lead gen work then for enterprise SEO?
Lead gen.
For you specifically, how do most enterprise consultants find clients? Because I think like on the enterprise level, things just work differently than working with small businesses, with startups. Most SEOs do work on that side with small businesses, with startups. So for people who work on the enterprise side, how does the lead gen sort of work? How do you find your clients?
So I've had I track every person I speak with, and for example, about 70 to 80% of my work is through referrals. So I've been at a company and I've been employed, I've been doing amazing bits and amazing work, and they would refer me to someone else who they're friend with at another enterprise. And it's really like just referrals for me. And like when you're in a field for a few years, like I would never advise a starting consultant to market themselves like they're dealing with enterprises, because they just don't know enough people and no one's gonna really trust you. So really like knowing people and doing the stuff for a few years before you try to jump in. And the best kind of lead gen tactic would be to do the work and then ask for referrals. So when I made the switch to consulting, my line manager okay, I'm gonna do this. Do you know anyone who can refer me? How can I get more? And he was like so open about it. He's like, yeah, you go for it. And I got a referral not from him, but from his manager. There's a smaller enterprise that needed someone like me. So yeah.
You got to ask.
Do you have any strategies for asking like your clients for referrals? Like what point would you want to ask? Do you wait till the engagement is done? Do you wait till you get your first big win, or when they're seeing some real progress? What's the strategy when you're asking current clients?
I mean, it's not really about asking. It's also about giving hints. So for example, we have in most of our client cases we have a clause that if we receive a successful contract, there's going to be a discount on the second engagement, so on the second year of the retainer. So we usually have 12-month contract. If within the first year, in the space of the first 8 months, we receive a successful referral, and then the referral is signed, the new contract is signed, then they will receive some form of discount. So it is given.
That's not that subtle. It's in the contract.
So do you point it out, or is it's just in there? When you said subtle, I thought you were going to sneak into the bedroom and whisper it while they sleep or something.
I mean, so it's there in the contract. It's there, but sometimes you just need to remind them that it's there.
I like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Is there any other point where you bring it up, or is it just in the contract?
I mean, we me and my team, we bring it up when we delivered some piece of work, and we do like reporting, like quarterly strategic reviews. And at the end of each review, we just say like few words at the end. Oh, by the way, there's this referral scheme that you're qualifying for.
Okay.
Yeah. That's cool. What? Let's say work dried up a little bit. It was a little bit more quiet than you would like, and you did need to be a bit more proactive. What platform would you say is the place to be engaging, and what roles at enterprise companies are the roles to be engaging with?
Personally, from my experience, when there was a dry period, my WhatsApp is the because I'm based on my main traffic source is like my kind of, I guess, background in enterprise level SEO while being employed. So WhatsApp for me, but also LinkedIn, I believe it's where like you have your kind of connections and second tier connections, and that platform is also useful. And yeah, but for me it's my number, and
I like that. I've been finding that a lot lately as well, actually, with WhatsApp, especially as we progress our careers and start engaging with more people within the industry at different conferences and stuff. I mean, it becomes overwhelming at times if you like stay in certain groups and stuff, but there's definitely people in there that, you know, if you talk to and offer value, and yeah, a network can grow pretty quickly and become quite valuable, I think.
So within that, so you're saying your network is the most important thing. You mentioned before we hit record that you were going to some conferences right now. So is that your main strategy to building out your network, LinkedIn and conferences, in-person networking?
I mean, in some way and shape or form, I guess it's about like, so I wouldn't be at a conference where there's business owners. I would be at a conference where there's certain target audience that I would like to speak with, whether that's speaking or just attending. So for example, I would go visit a conference if I know someone's already there that I know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so for example, it's like a sneaky lead gen tactic, but in a nutshell, I know a head of marketing that knows someone that is there, and then I would go speak to them, and then yeah, just walk my way around the room, I guess. And yeah, because at the end of the day, I am independent, right? So I have subcontractors. So I'm a consultant. I have to rely on my own brand more than my kind of consultancy, like sole trading brand. So it's all about personal branding for me.
And if the person that you've stalked out to go and see happens to not turn up for any reason, you can just spend the week getting drunk. So it's a win-win.
So who is that person you're looking for? Like what's the role you're typically trying to connect with for a new company?
I mean, there's different like kind of criteria I'm looking at, and I'm typically looking at heads of marketing, heads of digital performance, different like kind of names in the organization. And I try to pick out organizations that I already know they have some kind of drops in traffic. So like I wouldn't try to communicate with someone that already knows they're doing well, like they have year-on-year kind of traffic gains, they receive more kind of traffic over time. I would try to identify organizations based on their performance, but also if I see there's a shift of, so for instance, I have a database of around, so I segregate it based on the different categories I operate in, different industries, and based on personal details. I would try to identify any position changes. So if a marketing manager in the enterprise level company got promoted that I know someone. So I have around like couple hundred companies that I'm closely monitoring. There's a different kind of, I guess, way agencies go about it, because agencies, they're powerful teams and they usually kind of operate at larger scale, so they will sometimes do their work. In my instance, it's me diving into the teams and go into consulting. So the powerful word here is consulting, not implementing. So really trying to like look around the room, look at the team, and if the team I'm trying to pitch in, if the director of the or the head of department is someone I know of, or someone in the team knows kind of him closely, then I try to identify gaps. So if there's someone that already knows or is already skilled at what I'm doing. So if there is a digital marketing manager that has a background in SEO, there's no point me trying to go to that company, if that makes sense, because they already trying to get the upper hand. So if they got promoted, then they did something right. So really identifying the gaps in the organization. So there's no particular person that's what I do.
I think it's a smart move to track job position movement, especially if you've worked with someone successfully, let's say 18, 36 months ago at one company and then they move to another company. That's sort of an ideal situation. So how are you tracking those job movements? Is it like alerts through Apollo, or do you have a specific tool?
I mean, so I have my own like tool that I made.
Nice.
It's just like via like simple like Google Colab, like nothing like crazy, and it just gives me like, for example, LinkedIn updates based on the profile like feed. So if a LinkedIn profile feed changes in the field of experience field, then I get alerted. So just like a simple tool to scrape the data.
All right, so let's say you sit down with someone, you've been prospecting, you sit down with the head of the department. You've already mentioned that you're typically not targeting someone who has an SEO background. I'm guessing that's because they should have a pretty good understanding of what's going on there. But for everyone else, what do you find is the level of SEO knowledge? From my own experience working with, sort of not enterprise, but bigger companies, there's very little SEO knowledge if there's no dedicated SEO team. I've sat down with CEOs who they'll often say something like, oh, I have a background in SEO, and then you quickly realize they know absolutely nothing. So I'm curious if that's been your experience as well.
I mean, yeah, like when you walk into a room and then they talk about writing blogs, I'm like, okay, it all depends on the type of site, right, and the type of business. But if I'm hearing some kind of blog writing service, I'm either moving away or I'm walking out the room because I would understand, like, I can also read people, so I'm trying to be selective with who I work with because I value my time. So the clients I'm dealing with, they're high ticket. So I wouldn't have like an agency, like, I don't know, 10 clients at once. I would have 3 clients, and they're high ticket clients. So, and they also like retained client not for like a year, but 3 or 4 years, if that makes sense. So it's really about being selective and yeah, like if, for example, I had a dry period where I only had one retainer, it was keeping me kind of my finances well. And I started like different side hustle, which was not relevant to consulting and SEO. I just used my SEO skill to start something. So I guess thinking outside the box, and yeah, like anyone just starting entrepreneurial SEO, like consulting, just have different like streams of revenue is really like the key.